All right, we're going to talk you through some questions we wish you asked, and this has come from the support desk, and it's essentially things we get asked quite often, but in a variety of different ways. So we're going to try and give you some of the answers to preempt the questions. No particular order to these. It's just going to be as I've got the slides arranged, and I think the first and most important question is where are you from? Because as you hear, I have a lovely, deep, northern, well-spoken accent, and that is, of course, the North. And I think it's worth clarifying for a moment just exactly where this is, because we do have a lot of arguments in and out of the office where the North is. I might cause some controversy here, but I'm going to make a ruling and say, if you can turn west and start walking and you'd hit Wales, you're not in the North. So there's a quite clear line. It does cover Manchester. It just covers Liverpool. I apologise to people, Macclesfield, Chesterfield, but sorry guys, no, as far as we're concerned, you're in the Midlands. So with that settled, let's move on to something somewhat more technical.
Sure, it's further up.
There's another Cumbrian in the audience, isn't there? Hello. From Cumbria, everywhere is pretty much south for us, isn't it? So,
Where else in Cumbria are you from?
Kendall, are you?
Carlisle, but now live in Barrow and work in Penrith. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which bit? The bars are a bit.
Everywhere that's not Kendall, but I mean, Penrith's all right.
It'll do.
It'll do. So next year's talk will be a more granular definition of the bits of the North that I think are relevant, but
delineating the various tribes.
And it may well be called Yorkshire is okay, but please don't call me a Yorkshireman. Anyway, quite often get questions regarding the costs on ranges, as in you can look on the portal or you can use the API and you'll see a range available, but you'll see there are what we call gold numbers, either stuck in the middle with a bunch of repeating sequences or on the end with zeros, and we get asked why you can have, you know, the rest of the numbers free but a number to pay for. And it's quite simply, numbering's a managed resource. We have a finite pool of numbers available, and essentially if all the numbers were free, people might just cherry pick the good ones, the interesting ones, repeating digits like I say. Whereas if we put a cost on them, one, it means people can take a whole range as a clear block, and two, it kind of, slows down the uptake on them. Leading on from that is quite a frequent question. You add a number to your account and it doesn't work. So you raise a ticket, which is fair. We like people to raise tickets. The answer to this, and it's something we're working on, is it just takes a little time to propagate across the network. The portal is connected to a slave which writes to the master of our numbering system, and the information just has to travel through the network, let people know the numbers are available. It takes less than 10 minutes, I think, but we'd like to be a bit faster. But it's one of those things of, if you add a number, just make a cup of tea. Quite connected is a question we get. People wanting London area numbers, looking on the portal, not being able to find any, but they see there are 020 numbers. And this is a weird misconception. 020 is the London area code. It's not 0203, it's not 0207, it's not 028, it's just 020. So if your customer wants a London number, they can have an 020 number. There are the aforementioned 3s, 7s and 8s, but they're not as significant as you think they are. And there's the slide to prove it. It's just simply a numbering plan thing. We're jumping on to payments now. Quite similar to allocation of numbers. If you send in a payment and it's within the working day and you've used TransferWise, hint, hint, please update your account information. As soon as it clears the system, we'll apply it to your account. Again, this is something we want to automate, but for the time being, you send in a payment, one of us will see it in the relevant channels we monitor, and as soon as we see it, we'll apply it to your account. completely jumping on here because I've rearranged my slides at some point, is my all-time favourite question. Why is my porting request being rejected? And there are 40 or 50 rejection reasons, but you might as well ignore all but one of them, and that is postcode mismatch. Doesn't matter what your postcode is, doesn't matter that the postman can deliver the post to a certain address. If certain LCPs, that's losing communication providers, don't have that postcode on record, or they, for some reason known only to themselves, keep a postcode to the nearest exchange. If a house is on a corner of a street, for example, it's not going to fly. It's just one of those weird things. So the advice we have to give to people is check with the LCP first. You can put in requests for them to update their postcodes. They're normally fairly good at it, but essentially don't assume that a postcode attached to an address, as in a common sense reason, will always tally with what's going on. Leading on for that, I think Simon mentioned earlier, there's a certain branch of a certain big telephony company, not giving any names away, whose porting desk doesn't always remember where they left the post-it note with the memo to do their bit of porting. Can't remember the name of that branch, it's escaping me at the moment. Oh, hang on. Has anyone here heard of IPEX? It's a source of pure joy dealing with from porting desk. Essentially, your number should have been ported over to us. We'll see it go live. It'll work on just about every other network, but a BT landline or an EE phone, it just won't ring through. And it's because they've not changed one little bit of routing. It's something that can take sometimes minutes to solve, sometimes several hours, because essentially we have to get through to a branch of BT and say, are you sure you finished your porting? Can you have another look? And then convince them to go to IPEX and go, guys, can you do your bit? And then come back to us. So again, this takes a little time. We do like to harry them, but unfortunately we can't talk to them directly, presumably because they don't have any telephones in their offices. That's my best guess. I should really move on before I wrench into slander, I suppose it would be. Let's talk about access control lists, something completely different and pretty clever. This is part of your fraud control suites. And this is, I like to think of it as, if you ever listen to Radio 4's I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, one song to the tune of another.
Move on.
Anyway, essentially it's a highly granular system for setting rules as to who can dial what or who cannot dial what. It's a great way of stopping people ringing numbers you don't want them to ring to on your account and draining your balance. And it works like this. You can add a whitelisted number. For instance, the example here I've given the UK prefix, and the system will allow anyone to dial any number with that prefix and block all others. You can add, oh, I don't like that transition. Anyway, you can add a deny prefix. For example, I think I've picked Costa Rica there. Can't remember why I picked on Costa Rica. They must have annoyed me that day. But that will allow all other prefixes and deny people ringing that destination. But you're thinking, what if I want to ring some but not the other? The system's quite clever. It'll match on the longest string first. So you can deny. Where have I picked on there? I think I've picked on Carlisle. You can allow people to ring anywhere in the UK, but deny them.
See that? What is it?
1483. That's not Carlisle, is it? I should have picked on Barrow. Yeah.
Well, they are very similar.
They're-
1229 or 1228.
They are, aren't they? Well, oh.
Right.
Cool, we've got a room full of telecoms people. We should actually have a game of what's the area code. There'll be a quiz at the end. I'll shout out some. Anyway, essentially, it will allow you to allow and deny on high granularity, and it will apply on both your account and your trunk, which means you can set, as it says, account-wide rules for everyone, and then specify per customer per trunk. And these, as I said, are part of your fraud control suite, so please configure your account alerts accordingly, because when people attempt these numbers, you will get notifications. And this is, without being a teach people to suck eggs ones, we do get people ringing up asking if they have, or we have any issues with this, that and the other. We do like phone calls. We are a telephone company. There is a support line there for a reason. But the best way... Sorry?
Just tell us to switch tickets.
Well, you beat me to it there, but not quite.
He's read ahead.
Check status.
Then submit a ticket.
And then raise a ticket. Thank you. You should be doing this. Anyway,
It's the wrong way.
if we want to post something, if we're aware of anything, we will post it on status.simwood.com. There's a subscribe link on the page as well. Please ensure you subscribe to that. But it beats a phone call. Do raise a ticket, because then we can log things. We have a paper trail or audit trail, or what you want to call it, and it's a lot easier to keep track of, say, an issue with a phone number if you've got it digitally rather than on a piece of paper that you've written down with one hand whilst you're on the phone. So yeah, we're not teaching anyone to suck eggs there, but the best way to do things is to raise a ticket. It's not that we don't like talking to people, it's that we like keeping track of things. And finally, and I've been forced to do this bit, I'm sorry. Occasionally, you will hear a different voice when you ring the phone, and it's a sort of southern accent, and I've not quite pinned it down, but I'm told it's my colleague, Alex.
Thank you, sir. So can everyone please, can you all sit down, please? Oh, they are, right, sorry. Right, so hi everyone. Hope you're enjoying yourselves. So, I'll take over from Andrew and describe a few more things. And you can look forward to a dangerous demo at some point, which definitely won't go wrong. So one of the things we get asked about is out-of-hours support. Now, it is something we do offer. I'll clarify, our normal hours are 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But if you have an urgent issue, and I'll clarify urgent as, for example, all your inbound not working, but you have paid your invoices, and you're outbound not working, and you have got credit, or you can't ping any of our sites, but you can obviously ping third parties. Again, it's basic stuff, and always, as Andrew was saying, check status page first. But you have got an urgent issue, feel free to log it, and we'll take a look. Oh, there we go. There was a slide for that entire discussion, and what I normally look like when I'm on out of hours as well. Fantastic. And now very ambitious for day 2 of a con to describe the range hosting process. So range hosting, or getting your own ranges and numbers from Ofcom. It is, I'll point out, it's available primarily to our interconnect customers, and it's a £500 setup fee per batch, regardless of how many number ranges you're actually going for. And some of the benefits are that they're your numbers once you acquire them. You can have plenty of continuous ranges, and as Andrew was saying earlier, you're not having to worry about the gaps in between, so all the missing numbers ending in 0. And you can obviously sell on some of those gold numbers to your customers, which will hopefully be able to recoup that £500 at the beginning. And the process looks a little like this. So we always advise, if you haven't tried to talk to Ofcom for previously about getting your own ranges, talk to us. Fraser, who's probably hiding, has done this a few times with customers, and he'll be able to offer you advice on how to approach Ofcom in the right way. And we always say that if you try to approach Ofcom first, you might fall into a few pitfalls, a few traps, and you might find that if you overcomplicate things, that it can take a lot longer. Once you've approached Ofcom, eventually they'll issue you the numbers, they'll allocate them to you. Once that's happened, send us a ticket in with your letter of authority for us to be able to act on your behalf, and a list of the ranges you've been allocated. And that's when we'll raise the invoice for our costs as well. Then we go on to ask the networks directly connected to us to build the ranges on their networks, and after that we'll announce it to other networks for data filling. And I'll point out this can take quite a while and isn't really in our control. In fact, a point I should have made on the previous slide is when you approach Ofcom, we're not involved. So it's very much down to you guys when you're at that stage. And finally, testing. Very important. Sorry, I just freaked out the sound guys there. We test the sample of the number range you've acquired. Obviously, if you've gone for 10,000 numbers in every area code of the UK, it will take a while, and we won't be testing every single number. And we advise you to be, much more strenuous in your testing, and just make sure that before you put your numbers into production, you're happy that they work on the majority of networks. Again, don't start selling them on day one when we've given you the confirmation. It just test them first. They're your numbers at that point. So, on to a nice easy one to make me feel a bit better about life. So, locked bounce and bounce alerts. Again, another really powerful and quite simple little fraud prevention feature. So, to set lock bounce, just go onto our portal and go to commercial and bounce. Once you're on there, you'll be able to set aside some of your prepay funds to make sure it's not used in case your PBX is hacked overnight or over Christmas. It's a fun favourite. You could also set bounce alerts to notify you when you're running low on funds. At this point, I'll point out, don't set the bounce alert at the same amount as your lock bounce. Take it into account. Because if you have £100 locked away and your bounce alert goes off when you're at £100, you'll effectively have 0, which will be a problem. And all these things can be manipulated via the API, so there are options to automate some of this and to put some clever things in. Next is my dangerous demo. So, I think a number of speakers have somewhat prepped this. Oh, crikey. That's scary. So, thank you, Jared, by the way, for prepping this demo. So, firstly, who knows what a packet capture is? Yeah, half the room at least, I'd say. And who's used SNGrep or something similar to get? I'm hoping you raise your hand there, Jared. To be fair, so it's one of my favourite tools for taking packet captures on my own PBX. So before I go forward, I'll just explain very briefly. You might see some non-default settings, some things that you wouldn't necessarily see if you load up SNGrep for the first time. That's the settings there. I'll let you catch up later on the video, but that's some of the settings I have on my config. So let's see if this works and see if my terminal's still up. That is excellent. Don't want to hear that rubbish. Right, so see, this is why I need 2 hands. No, it's fine, Andrew. Thank you there. Oh, come on. Maybe I did need that mic held. There we go. Right. So SNGrep started. This is what you'll see. And I'll just make a call. So this is over my own PBX. You can see people already attempting to hack my system. Fantastic. So when you load it, when it's a call running, so I've called our test line here. You can see the leg from my phone to my PBX here, and then you can see the one out to Simwood. And if I go into this very briefly, I'm not going to go through all the granular details, just get rid of that on the side. And you can see here the various steps of the call and the RTP flowing there as well. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. So I'll make another call. Be a bit more interesting when my phone decides to load. So this one is a failed call. So you can see it coming from my mobile to my PBX. And our PBX has tried to call out via Simwood. If we look in here, it's come back with a 488. That's what we've all seen during interrupt testing, I imagine. And I just want to point out, very useful piece of information is there's an X reason header, and as some of you may be aware, the X reasons are the custom header, or X headers rather, are custom headers that you might see. So down the bottom, we'll tell you why your call was rejected. So again, myself and Andrew have had quite a number of tickets saying, why did you reject my call? And we asked for a PCAP from you guys, and we receive it, and we find in there the rejection reason, and we have to screenshot it and send it back to you. And so yeah, always check that first. Well worth it. I've been told I sound condescending sometimes. I'll leave it at that. So let me just quickly make a change on here. I'll just show you one more interesting little feature. So who loves transcoding? We all love transcoding, don't we? It's fantastic. Definitely doesn't degrade quality of calls ever. So let's have a quick look at a call with a bit of transcoding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both legs of the call and open it up in SNgrep. As you can see here, you can see good old ALOR travelling along to my PBX, and then you can see it going across as Opus from my PBX to Simwood. So again, something useful to look out for when you're doing your diagnostics is if you're noticing some degradation in quality or some high CPU usage on your box, this could well be the culprit. There we go. So and finally, when you log a ticket and we inevitably ask you for a packet capture, how you save, again, is, so you can see at the bottom, F2 for save, call it something you'll definitely remember, definitely won't get lost there, and literally, there we go, PCAP is saved. Nice and easy. There we go. Let's come out of that. Oh, look at that, seamless. So, there we go, a bit of SNgrep, and I will be definitely sending that out to people who ask. So, another common query we get is around RTP, is around the audio, either one way or dropping out entirely. And firewalls, again, something Jared prepped me for yesterday. Always check your firewalls are set correctly, including port ranges. And what you most of you are probably aware, to be fair, is that your applications can have their own access control lists as well. So we find that some PBXs, as default, either reserve certain port numbers that we like to use for RTP, or they will just flat out deny certain ports, especially the higher numbers we use. And if you're not sure what the port ranges are, check our interop pages, because I certainly can't remember them, and every time I need to look at it as well. And also just a little point around testing for RTP issues. And obviously we always like you to test things before you log them. And for RTP, I'll usually set up a soft phone on a device off the network and connect it to one of our auth trunks and push the phone number through that auth trunk. And at that point, if the RTP flows, then it's a non-Simwood issue, as you've proved it still works, and it will be linked to your PBX or your firewall. So it's just a really useful quick 5-minute test you can do to save you a lot of back and forth and a lot of hassle. And finally, something nice and easy to finish up on, non-call rates. So Alex, we've checked everything. We still don't know how much blank costs, because it's very easy to find our published termination rates. But down here at the bottom on simwood.com/rates, you'll find our other costs, so numbering or porting fees, that sort of thing. So anything that's not termination, you'll find on there. There we go. So, any questions for either of us while you have us here? Captive. Oh my god, brilliant. I love doing this on day 2.
Oh, hang on, man. When you publish new incidents to status.simwood.com, can you always check that little box to email people? Because we've missed a few things, and I'm not bothered about emails for all the rest of the updates on the incidents, but those new incidents would be really useful if we got emails for those, please.
More one for Simon, to be fair.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that one. Yes, yeah, absolutely right. And
Even if we get too many, I'm not bothered. I'd just rather see them.
Historically we did for everything, and I mentioned this debate that we're having internally. Graham's sort of trying to improve us in that respect in his new role, clarifying support priorities and what does and doesn't get dealt with out of hours. One of my wishes, so it's all my fault ultimately, is that status is less noisy, because I know what it's like to get a text message from a status service and you think, shit, it's my Friday night just ruined. And if it's us talking about an issue that 10 other customers have had using an application that's nothing to do with you, or something scheduled for 3 weeks time, it's an unnecessary raising of your heart rate. So I think
definitely on those, but like incidents.
Yeah, the trouble is it's slightly grey, and I think I think some recent ones, absolutely, they should have had the notifications ticked. But as we go through this sort of process that also changes who will actually be doing the notifications and kind of the updates, and sort of formalises that communication, procedure so that the people actually looking at the incident aren't trying to firefight tickets and aren't trying to update status page. We've got enough bodies now. We can do things more, more formally and have, multiple dedicated resources for each thing. That just requires more, familiarity and training.
You start to get more. If you start sending more of them out, there's a tendency to ignore them.
Yeah, and you also you also get the issue that I mentioned too this morning. You mentioned somebody replying to a maintenance thing, kicking off that things are unreliable. Well, where's the linkage there? But in their head there is one.
Yeah, sorry for the ignorance of this question, but just the status.simwood.com or .co.uk, whatever. Can you just tie that into a Slack or Teams channel through webhooks or something?
Yes.
So, okay.
You can have SMS, email, RSS. I think it's certainly hooked into our Slack. You can do pretty much whatever you want. So that does give you a bit more scope to have your own notifications, there as well.
I'm Graham, who's Simon's referring to. One of the things we'd like to do is find something that's, we use statuspage.io. I'd like to find something that does a little bit better than that in terms of, we can upgrade our subscription so that you can alter your notifications, but some people will want text messages about urgent, incidents rather, high level stuff, and just other notifications, maybe email, about minor incidents which may or may not affect them. So I'd much rather have a more granular choice. So we'd give out much more information, but less of it would be major incidents. We don't have many major incidents, fortunately. So that would be much more relaxing for you as the consumer of those, and you can decide, because whatever you want may be different to what other people in the room want. I've looked at quite a few status pages without finding those features. So if you know of an externally hosted package, that's what we want to use, even though it is just a web page, then please let me know, because we would like to improve in that area.
Anyone else? Good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.